Did you know that besides the 4 new emotions that will appear in Inside Out 2, some amazing emotions were also going to make an appearance in Riley's mind in Pixar's new film? That's right. One of the emotions that was also going to appear in Inside Out 2 was the emotion of hope. She would be represented by a yellow female character with red hair and even had a kind of magical wand, like a Disney fairy godmother, spreading a magical dust of optimism to everyone, sort of infecting all the other emotions with positive thoughts inside Riley's mind. In fact, there's even a Pixar short where she interacts with other emotions in Riley's mind, like fear and joy. But as the film developed, Pete Docter realized that hope, which was more closely related to optimism, was more of a state of mind. So he decided to combine it with joy, who is always optimistic. That's why this emotion is tucked away and wasn't one of the 4 new ones chosen to appear in Inside Out 2 once again. But she wasn't the only one that was planned to be used in what will be the best animation of 2024. There are a few others too that we'll show you now. Pessimism. The original idea was that in Riley's mind, there were between 22 and 27 emotions, as Pete Docter, the creator and director of Inside Out, himself explains. Riley's mind would be like a company with various control panels, where groups of emotions would work together just like the 5 main emotions in the film. One of them that was also discarded was the emotion of pessimism. She would be represented by a character who is this big man in an old-fashioned suit with a black tie, similar to anger. One of pessimism's characteristics would, of course, be the belief that everything would go wrong all the time. As you can tell from his expression, he had no hope that anything would go right. It might appear in some future film, but it seems that his personality was merged with anxiety, which, although different from pessimism, will be responsible for making Riley think she can't do something, leaving her insecure and, guess what? Pessimistic. Love, passion. This is certainly one of the most anticipated emotions that didn't make it into Riley's lineup of emotions, and one that most of us would have loved to see in this new film. Passion or love, as originally conceived by the team for the first movie. The character's design portrayed him as a cute, smiling little man with golden curly hair. His body would be entirely pink and resemble a cute and charming little heart shape. He would be the emotion responsible for Riley showing affection for the people she loves, like her parents and friends. But as she grew, he would also be the emotion that awakened the old and good feeling of passion that everyone experiences sooner or later. When that happened, he would sort of transform into a floating feeling that would hover in the air, like a butterfly without wings. It's what Riley would feel when she was near the boy she liked, who seems to be Jordan. And the truth is, we haven't lost hope that she might still appear in Inside Out 2. We know that Disney Pixar likes to surprise us, so this would certainly be a good way to do it. At least it's what I would love to happen. What about you? Schadenfreude! This was another emotion that even had its own animation, but had a rather peculiar aspect that almost no one knows about. But you're about to find out. It would have been an emotion with a name completely different from all the others. It would be called Schadenfreude! In the design, he would be represented by a chubby man with a large mustache and overalls in a German-style outfit. This characterization wasn't by chance, because Schadenfreude is a word that only exists in the German language, and it means that feeling of satisfaction we get when we see someone else's misfortune, which is what happens to fear in this lost animation from the making of Inside Out. But in the end, the team thought that most people watching the movie wouldn't understand this emotion very well, and so it was cut, and it probably won't appear in any of the Inside Out franchise films. Covetousness. This is actually an emotion that is both in and not in Inside Out 2. Hold on, let me explain. Among the 4 new emotions depicted in the next Inside Out movie, one of them will be envious, the little sweet and dangerous one. But before she was developed for the new film, she had already been designed for the group of more than 20 emotions that would appear in the first movie. Covetousness would be a kind of feeling or wanting what other people have for oneself. While envious also includes this, it goes further, sometimes creating a feeling of feeling bad even about other people's joy. So, since these 2 negative feelings are so similar, the idea was to combine them into a single character, which is exactly this little girl with small hands who will appear in Inside Out 2. And the truth is, she has the potential to be the villain of this new film. At least, that's what's been going around on the internet. What do you think? Who do you believe will be the villain of the new film? Will it really be envious? Or perhaps anxiety? Maybe embarrassed or ennui? We want to know. Comment down below what you think. Guilt. Guilt would be that feeling Riley would experience whenever she did something wrong. She would be represented by a large, somewhat purple character wearing a hat on her head, and she would always appear downcast because, after all, she's guilt, right? This emotion would be responsible for Riley feeling bad about herself for doing something she deemed unfair. But it would also make her feel guilty. For example, when she took her mother's card from her wallet to buy a bus ticket and try to run away. The detail is that the team realized that having guilt and embarrassed together, despite being different things, would be somewhat confusing to explain to the audience. So, embarrassed was chosen and will appear in Inside Out 2. And one of the characteristics that remains in the character is that she will still be large, probably the biggest of the emotions. This means that Riley is going to feel a lot of embarrassment in this new film. Adolescence is always like that. What can you do, right? This feeling is one that has great potential and can still appear in future Inside Out films, of which we hope there will be many. Pride had a very important role in the pilot animation created by Pixar for the development of the first Inside Out film. He would be a character who would provide comic relief in the animated movie, as he would always speak up when his pride was hurt. He would be a big, masculine figure who always walked with his nose in the air in a proud style, and Joy would use that to annoy him from time to time, which would certainly be very funny. Irritation. This was another emotion that had its design created but was not used because of a character named Anger. Irritation would be a female character who would be the pure personification of chaos, as she would be a kind of gray scribble cloud with 2 eyes. She would be another emotional state that would generate unpleasant behaviors and bursts of irritation, driving Riley out of her mind. This may seem similar to anger in several ways, but with the difference that anger is more responsible for making Riley pouty and grumpy. Since they are different emotions but share some similarities, the Inside Out team thought it best to leave her out, and the character ended up being completely discarded from both the first and future films. Covetousness 2. Well, folks, as if feeling covetousness and envious once weren't enough, the team responsible for designing the characters of Inside Out actually created a second version of the covetousness emotion. The second design for this other character would have had a much more devious and malicious appearance. He would be a thin, tall man in a green suit, which is the same color used by the first covetousness we showed in this video, as well as the color of the envious that will appear in the new Pixar film. The problem with the character is that he gave off a rather frightening vibe for a Pixar movie. Because I'm sure that if it were a DreamWorks film, they would use the character. DreamWorks loves good villains. Anyway, the fact is that since Inside Out had the idea of not having an explicit villain, but rather showing the inner conflict of a pre-adolescent's mind, the character was discarded and will likely never be utilized. Nadia Gretchen. Hold on, folks, that's not a bad word. This is actually a foreign phrase that's more like not liking anything. This would be a character similar to Schadenfreude that we mentioned earlier in the video, and she would be portrayed with a strong European accent as the phrase originates from that continent, and she would be nothing more than the original version of disgust. That's right, she was initially designed to show what disgust would be like, and even had a scarf around her neck. For the sake of making the character easier to understand, her name was changed, and the emotion received a different design with a more snooty look, which worked out perfectly. So folks, those were the 10 emotions that were shown to be deleted and altered in Inside Out, a film that marked the lives of many people. And to keep the fun going, we've selected 2 more super cool videos for you to enjoy more great content. Just choose and click on one of them.